Oh, I actually clicked too much. It worked now. Okay, sorry.
Oh, fuck, my voice is not loud enough. For the stream. Hello? Is that better?
Hello, hello.
Hello? Hello? Okay, okay. I mean, my voice carries, but, you know. But yeah, to bridge the gap between competitive gaming and to better understand the competitive player experience. And for this to work, we're basically motivated by two key things. We kind of want to see the game of Magic improve through like a system design, kind of, you know, fundamentally about that, but also we care about how, at a base level, we both care about games and how people play those games in a better way. So, Eduardo, let's start getting the show on the road. Tell people about these beautiful humans that are on the screen.
Right. Well, this one's me, but otherwise. So these folks are again all around the world: Italy, Canada, Hong Kong, New Zealand, Australia, various countries in
Use the
Europe
mic,
as well.
mate. Use the mic.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Actually, the mic has nice resonance too. So these people are from all around the world, a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different ages as well. The gentleman in the middle we will talk about in a bit. He managed to pay his student loans in the UK with Tournament Magic, so it's kind of nice to not be another cog in the debt machine. And that was us in Chicago going in the back room where they finally found some place with good lighting. But fundamentally, a lot of different people, a lot of different countries. Yes, I know on the type of person, but we can talk about that later. So this is it, right? There we go. So when we do high-level tournaments, we can talk about this after, but there's briefly, there are 2 tracks that each player has to compete through, 16 rounds. This is one of the tracks, so it's called limited. So the idea is you sit at a table, you get packs of randomized cards, similar that you could get at any game store. You open them, and you have to take a card, and then you pass them around the table, and at the end of that, you have a deck from 3 packs in front of you. So kind of an interest, my favorite format by far. So the big thing here is this method was done, and essentially, this has worked. This does pretty well. So what we do is we do an opening. So like usually this, I'm responsible for this. So I let them know this is roughly what we need to do as tasks. This is how I see things. This is what we need to research to figure out what's left. Because there's a translation from online play to real life play. So we need to do that. So what we do, we sit down, we do the thing, we play, and then after that we discuss. So what they do is they take back their cards. They were playing with 8 people around the table. They put them back where they were. And in 30 minutes, we go around the table per person, and they each tell their story. So they go like, this is what I did, these are the choices I made, and this is what the outcomes of those choices were, and this is what I would do in the future. Each person discusses for 3 minutes. So in about 30 minutes, everybody's told their story. And everybody tells their story to 16 people. So one story, 16 listeners. Again, there are 8 stories per draft, so this works well because essentially this creates sequential learning. Creates this concept of I'm learning from somebody else, and I'm hearing story after story, and I get the larger picture as well. I get everything in a very tight time frame. At the end, the recap is really what have we learned across the week. This is done in a week. This is actually really efficient. And then this is the approach you'll need for the tournament. So this has worked well. this is what most teams do for the other track, which is constructed where you bring your own cards. Spoiler, this is what we're going to talk about because this didn't work so well. So essentially, it's very much a kind of, we need to go deep into tank research, right? You build or you copy your decks, right? You find them, you play test them, you try again, try again. Tournament comes, you're like, okay, here's what we need to do. So the main thing here is this is a little more siloed, right? So there's a energy cost to translating this play into a story for 16 hours. So this is actually one of the problems that we're gonna address throughout the talk. This is a lot of numbers. Don't worry too much about them. You want the little green numbers at the bottom. I'm so sorry for the people in the back. But essentially, as time goes on, the limited goes better, and we start. For context, about 60% is considered world-class at these level events because the play skills are so close. So when you get to about 60% or better, that's considered world-class. So in this, we're considered very average, medium. And in this, we were starting to break like some pretty high-end world-class levels. So we wanted to fix that, right, as a team. So we went back into history. This gentleman here is called the German juggernaut, Kai Budde. 1999 to 2002, the most winning player of all time.
Winning.
He won 7 major tournament titles. The next person on the list, I believe, is at 3. So what he did in 1999, and again, the game was created in 93, so this is 6 years later, is he figured out, alongside other Germans, that you need to test matchups. I know what I'm going to face, so I need to prepare for what I'm going to face. There's other, now the meme is there are other things, of course, but this was the major innovation basically in this field, right? Later on, there was the creation of super teams. So like basically instead of teams like, these are my neighbors, it's teams from people of the same skill set. And then in about 2014, we got what was called perpetual testing. So like people are playing tournaments every week. So we're testing for tournaments every week. But this was really the major innovation. And like nothing compared to what he was doing back then. It was it was so ahead of its time, nobody's really changed anything in 26 years. This was not the answer. But no, it's fine, it's fine. So essentially one of the things we were struggling with that we identified is they weren't discussing enough, right, what was going on at the table. So I was trying to figure out a method for them to force them to talk. This was not the answer, which we'll get into. But essentially this is a turn-by-turn map. So this outlays the possibilities. So you have turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, and then like the possibilities of the opponent. If you want to alter play draw, you can also move them like this. And the idea is that like you have this ready so you can swap them in and out like kind of an overlay. So each of these is a separate overlay so you can swap them. So that was the original design. We'll get into why that didn't work. And this is probably one of the ugliest forms of it. But essentially it was to force discussion. Now, I can't do everything on my own. So, wow, your picture's not there.
The picture's gone.
You'll just have to appear.
I just have to appear. Hello, everyone, I'm here. Hello, I'm here. So when I joined, it's hello.
Can you go where the picture was?
It would be here. I'd be here. Hello, I'd be literally here. So when I joined, obviously I told you how we met, but I was also trying to do a placement as part of my PhD. So when I joined, I wanted to bring some of the user research methods I've been learning through my research and kind of get an understanding of how we could make the process sharper, how we could ensure the players were motivated, effectively trying to bring some of the user-centered approaches into the testing process. Now, this was a big opportunity, but it came with a lot of challenges. I have to deal with some boys. I have to deal with boys, so that's already a challenge itself. And as you saw, the original work, the prototype, it's quite a heavy workload. It's kind of cognitively loading for the players. And while Eduardo that was what I was sold on, by the way, did you see it? I got sold on that. But I kind of knew that it wanted to build clarity, but my concern was that it was going to potentially kill the motivation of the players to go through that turn by turn. So what I tried to do, I was like, okay, well, let's test it, because I can't just be like, no, we can do it. So let's actually test it. So we actually did some play testing with this process to try and, bring some structure to the process. And basically, on paper, instinctively, Eduardo was onto something. You're making them have instinctive plays, you're making them articulate it. You think by that, there's a level of discussion that comes from that process. That learning will then disseminate. Seminars have worked for thousands of years of education. I thought, why not? But the reality is that to set up a prototype took about 30, 60 minutes. Then we had the playtesting session, which was 2 participants and a moderator, either me or Eduardo. I then synthesized it, usually, to kind of try to condense the learning into something that was usable for the team. But that in total was 7 human hours. Now, if I put it into playtesting terms, that is effectively 3.5 hours of playtesting per session for 1 match. Now, for anyone who's done playtesting, that's not, dang good juju, folks. So we were like, okay, that, in theory, it works, so let's try and refine it. So I then was like, okay, let's try and capture the key things we actually care about. So I basically was like, okay, let's give some context, there's some goals of what we're trying to establish. We basically tried to do the plays, and, this was basically, I created this because I also thought that we could actually capture some of this stuff when people are playing by themselves. So if we can try and capture some of this, we could use this synthesis as a way to kind of like build a document of kind of conversations and insights that could then be used for the team. This refinement did kind of work, but the value wasn't in these templates. It wasn't in these prototypes. It was the discussions that were coming out of that we kind of yielded. And the first lesson was that you can't just kind of top down put something in. People have a way they've been doing this for 20 plus years, and we're like, okay, this has got some foundations, but it's not exactly aligned with the way they play, how they're motivated and stuff like that. So I was like, how can we utilize other learning styles to try and, figure out how we can do it? So we tried, obviously, written work, we tried discussions, we tried visual explorations. Now, this was mainly Eduardo's kind of love, but I kind of also want to try to make this conversational and kind of use these kind of forms to do it. This kind of has worked in limited. This is something Eduardo is very passionate about in terms of using visuals to kind of show how cards can go together. So obviously, if you have a card that's like what we call like, you play this in the first 2 turns of the game, you don't want to have this trying to cast something like later in the game. Like if this comes in like turn 7, you can't cast your card at turn 7, that kind of thing. So we were like, okay, even with these creative tools, the most important kind of lesson and sort of, we're trying to encourage storytelling here and trying to encourage how things go together so people can discuss about it more and sort of build that collaborative learning environment that I think that was sort of missing. So we tried forcing them to talk, we tried them to write down their talk, tried to make them talk visually. But fundamentally, it wasn't how we were capturing it. It was actually in the way that they were already doing the work. And I basically went to Eduardo about halfway through the project, and I was like, what if we just talk to the players? Like, you'd think people kind of miss this in the process of like, you're making something, you're designing something, and then you're like, we should talk to players and see how they're motivated. Because we kind of sort of, initially the players kind of wanted to grow, they wanted to value the insight that we were giving them, but it was also, it's kind of useless if we build something and it's just read document or it's like an insight in someone's mind that no one gets to capture. So we're just like, all this insight's great, but if it's not being disseminated, how is that useful to anyone? Especially in an adaptive environment. Like, major tournaments are happening like 3-4 times a year. Like, you can't just like, go, oh, I remembered this and then I never told anyone. I'm like, well, that's not useful if you're trying to help 20 other players. So for us, it necessarily wasn't what they were playing. It was sort of how they were playing it, what they were discussing, how they were maintaining that real-time discussion. That was something that was really important that I basically found. And I think from Limited and something Eduardo had done, I think they liked the notion that they could use the collaborative learning process, use the review process to kind of have that discussion. So our major lesson, again, if you remember nothing else above the mission statement, is make the process feel like a conversation, not a chore. We are a volunteer organization. These people are trying to get better because they're trying to progress. We'll get to that in a minute. But if we make it feel like a job and they're testing, I'm going to swear now, bitch, what's the fucking point? So make the process feel like a conversation, not a chore. But I wanted to talk to the players further, so I basically was like, okay, you're playing competitive Magic. Why? Why are you motivated to play competitive Magic? Now, you also need to read the numbers. The top is basically the thrill of competition, improving my skills, and the love of the game. And then further down is financial reward. So they don't care about winning. They don't care about the money. I mean, they win. The winning's around here.
A little bit, but a lot less.
A lot. So I wish that my friend come inside. Oh, he's always taking a picture. But yeah, it was about this notion of improvement and the notion of the love of the game and how they can challenge themselves, which for me was very important. So I was like, okay, we know about that. How do you want to be supported on that journey? Now, this is a snapshot of some of the players. I kind of decided to do this in different stages. As you can tell, what is the most overwhelming thing? The testing team. They wanted to feel that they were connected to players. They wanted to feel seen. They wanted to feel heard. They wanted to feel like they were acknowledged. Because fundamentally, this is just a bunch of people who are trying to improve at a game and working together and seeing together. We'll get to that determination and focus in a minute. So, this for me, this kind of importance of team support was very important. And, you know, we were trying to bake in some of that into every step, ensuring no one's left behind, build some momentum, get some excitement. But however, we get to this.
So I'll read this because this makes Sahar angry enough.
I'm going to sit down because I'm pissed off.
Before I do into this, so obviously Devcom submissions close at a certain time. So what you've heard is roughly where we were at when we submitted. The second part has the plot twist of why this talk's title changed. But I'll read this. So this came after about in late April, early May. And essentially, we had done a tournament. We tried a new experimental theory for kind of lower rung of play to kind of income people we couldn't take into the main group who aren't qualified to kind of grow. There's a lot there that's interesting. Won't dive into it, but if you want to talk to me after, more than welcome. That said, because of that, we had a clash because it was experimental, a lot of old blood, new blood. And this one came from, I won't name the team member, but somebody from the older group. And one of the things when you are trying to do processes and team values is that this type of thing will come up. You will have people who fundamentally disagree with what you're trying to do, but what you'll find out too is that there are people who fundamentally disagree with the values that we started with in the first place, but you didn't have the tools to figure out. This is one of those. So this was feedback that came through from one of the team leads who had spoken to a member. So I'll read this. Ultimately, Magic is an individual game, and there's a cost of having people on my team. The only reason to have people on teams is the info they provide me, which is essentially completely the opposite of everything we're trying to do. Like, you could take the statement, put the negator on everything, and I'd probably agree there. So this was very against, and one of the things that was nice about this statement is it taught us how to write values, because we're like, okay, how do we write our values for this to never happen again?
Please, never again. This, for me, was something that was pretty heartbreaking to see. But this also motivated the pair of us to kind of try to build what's next. Because fundamentally, what are we trying to accomplish? We saw phase one, it sort of worked, but we were coming at it from like a game design problem. And I was like, okay, we need to come at this from a user research problem to understand how people are motivated, how do they learn, how do they succeed. And get them involved, because you saw before they were motivated by learning, they're motivated by wanting the testing team to be a part of the support that they have. So, after exploring all the prototypes you saw, we get into phase two. And for us, this was kind of a way that we could respect the motivations of the players and how they were playing. So obviously we discussed this with the team, so post-phase, so we kind of got some experienced members on board. Remember that guy, Alex? Oh, I didn't say Alex, but the guy in my head he's Alex. I've known that guy since he was 11 years old. And now he's paying off his student debt with Magic earnings. So give him a hell yeah. So yeah, we talked to the team and we were like, okay, we've got some plans to put this in the next step. We agreed with the team to use hypothesis-based testing to address them. Effectively, trying to focus in rather than just like turn by turn, actually taking certain hypotheses and scenarios that they can leverage to try and test them. So, rather than it being like a big grandiose thing of like, okay, does this card work in X deck? Does this thing work in that? How do these cards work well together if you're trying to build combos and stuff like that? Then we kind of worked on evaluating the kind of questions, so kind of helping them formulate things, so it's not just like piss in the wind, like stuff that they can't answer, actually kind of giving them a bit of, using my research training to help do that, and to try and give them a structure of a playtesting method that they could leverage. So we decided to do 2 by 2. So similar to kind of the phase one, but it was 2 players playing, and then one person who was kind of moderating, and then one person who was taking notes, and they would have a discussion at the end. So leveraging kind of the collaborative discussions they were having already, but doing it in a kind of more collaborative way. Which sounds obvious, but when you're talking to players who have no idea about game design or research, they're just like, we just talk to each other. And I'm like, yeah, what if you structured that and we reviewed it and you guys filmed it and we had logs? My God, this would be incredible.
For context, one of the challenges we had is that a lot of, and this isn't just our team, this is actually something I just see in Magic all the time, is a lot of, we're too good at designing games in the industry. So people find it a lot easier to just play games online on their own. So it is actually an energetic cost to get them to fundamentally agree to play with each other instead of just playing situation play. Like I'll play a competition, I'll play a tournament, I'll play a ladder game. So this still has a cost, but our fundamental is how do we break kind of that inherent bias barrier and break the silo, because that's really our challenge here.
So this is kind of what we envisioned. So this was sound and it did work, but we definitely noticed some hesitation. Again, Eduardo talked about old guard, new guard, and sort of trying to get them to, again, leverage a way that then, it's a bit, when you're doing something new, it's a bit unfamiliar. They're just like, oh, I don't really understand and stuff like that. But we were very much pushing this idea of being open, being communicative to the team, sharing the vision of, trying to leverage a way of collaborative learning that is aligned with their values and aligned with their motivations, and breaking down the barrier so it wasn't just an individual effort. A lot of these people are individually driven, but they also are craving teamwork to succeed. And it was about trying to, reframe a lot of that so it's a collective thing rather than an individual thing. But after a few weeks and months of iterations, guiding them, me and Eduardo helping assisting the process, we started to notice that the players actually began to own the process. Isn't that right, Eduardo?
Right, yeah. So we'll go through that. Big thing here, for context again. So I talked a bit about this idea of siloing. So when I work in the industry, right, in different companies, there's research teams. I've been I've been watching some from outside, but they're generally siloed. They don't talk a lot to the rest of the business. That's semi-typical, it seems. If you work somewhere where it's not the case, great, that's fantastic. Please do it. Yes. But that's one thing we didn't do. We shared at all times with the team, no matter how young the person was in the group. If they were there a week or two, we shared that stuff. When Sahar was talking about talking with the players about the next steps, we're talking about active students, people who are 19, 21, 24. I'll shout out Myra and Liam as well. They'll appreciate it. On top of Alex. But essentially we're talking about people actively in studies in different fields. And that's one of the things, though, we trusted in them and we gave them that chance to be leaders over time. So they took initiative. They took our approach and they moved it from research to practical. They went, we think this is a way to get things done. And when I read it, they were right. So their approach was rooted in play and in their motivations, because it's the story they live, right? So they took the hypothesis testing we did, but they moved it into practical scenarios, and that gave confidence in the testing immediately. And I'm talking in a week we implemented it, and in a month we saw results. The accuracy increased. And the nice part about this, it didn't matter how long someone was in the team, it was relevant to them. So you might have come into the team 2 or 3 weeks ago. This was immediately useful. It didn't matter if you knew everything about what you were playing or not at all. It was useful at all levels. So, you have the clicker. So, Discord groups, this is typical. But as a result, a lot of hypothesis-based testing. So each of these is a different hypothesis. You will know on how good is astrology and planisphere. That will make no sense to you. The conclusion was even wrong, which is funnier. But the point is that they were essentially testing things in a way that was condensed, that was helping communication very rapidly. My favorite one is this one, where somebody doesn't know what's going on. We had somebody new in the team who does data analysis, so he pulled us a nice little SQL search on data. That answered the question, but that's not actually what's important. This is actually kind of easy. You all experience this. What's important is, what do we do with this? And this comes from a different team member who's trying to understand from this, what does this imply and what we're trying to do? So it's not so much about answering the hypothesis, is that it's building on very quickly. Like if you look at the timestamp, this is 15 minutes. He's answering 40 minutes later. So all of this is building really rapidly from people who are motivated in knowing this.
He is very Brazilian, yes. He's the Brazilian team lead. We love him. Genuine nice guy as well. Genuine nice guy. Right. Oh, sorry. I got excited. I got excited about Brazilians. There you go.
So excited. There we go.
There you go.
Anyways, so constructed. You'll notice that this looks similar to what we did in limited. It's all about breaking that silo and building a process that implies all team members. Because when we're talking about discussion, it's giving accountability to people who, again, have only been there for a month. It's giving them accountability in a way that they can respect, right? We would like you to do this. I will talk to you before. I will let you know how you need to do it. They do it. I will give them feedback, and they grow as they see everybody else doing it. So no matter how experienced you are in the team, you see all the members doing it, which helps a lot. It breaks that barrier. So generally, when we're at the actual house for this, we do this online a bit, but the actual physical place, we again have like the original state where we're at, the hypothesis, building, playing, discussion. So they would do similar to limited. So we would have a group of 8 that breaks away, that goes, what's the hypothesis we're going to test for the next 3 hours? Okay, how are we breaking this down? So, okay, you 2 do this, you 4 do this, you 2 do this. At the end, they discuss it and then share the wider findings. So the important innovation here is the breaking of that silo. Instead of having the groups that are like this and separated and the conclusions are lost, because trust me, the number of tournaments where after the tournament they're like, oh yeah, I figured this out. And you're like, why didn't you tell me? So we didn't have that problem. That was broken. That's super important. Plus sequential learning, plus building on, plus sharing analysis. And then again, we have the recap so that people are comfortable because again, they're at a tournament, they're on their own. So they have to be able to perform alone. So your team member who's newer needs to have the tools in their arsenal to be able to compete at the highest levels of play. So these are the results. Again, a lot of stuff. Don't worry too much about it. The important part is this yellow line. So there's a tournament that's been added. This was while we were developing. It's a reminder that while you're developing something, nothing's going to necessarily change. It takes time. But one of
it's happening, folks. So we've got all the IPs now. It's fine.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that was a crazy event.
It was a crazy event.
I'm not gonna go into it, but basically, if you had a pulse, you would have made a lot of money that event. I'm not joking. They were giving promo cards that on the. Again, we're a voluntary organization. We're not affiliated with Wizards of the Coast in any way, shape, or form. So I can say this. They were, some of the promo cards were worth like 1,000 plus for showing.
You could have made bank.
But anyways, so the important part here is that the result increased dramatically. This is by far best result. And one thing I'll just let you know, mathematically, it is a lot harder to do well in both. Because generally when you do well in one, it's going to be really hard to maintain that in the other because you're facing people who are also skilled. So generally, if you were to look at this in detail, the one tournament where we did poorly in limited, that was, I will take accountability for that. I took the wrong theory. It was higher because this was lower, so the rest was easier. What was important here is this did not go down. So it's maintaining quality at this level while increasing it here. And now we're talking about a team with a lot of newcomers who are essentially competing at a world-class level. So that's nice. Again, we had engaged teammates. They were actively involved, no matter the expertise. We made sure that no teammate was left behind. That's super important to me. My measure of success is not that a teammate who knows what they're doing does well, because they could do well on their own probably sometimes. It's that the person who's new and needs the help as well. That's the measure of success for me. The training, again, we're talking about sequential learning. They feel comfortable listening to the stories of others, and they're taking part. So they're not just learning away. They're not participating and being forced to over-voice. They're where they need to be with everybody else. And it's, again, this idea from a value perspective that I can't do these things on my own, so I need others to support my journey.
Mutual striving, folks, very important. If you remember nothing else, this phrase. I was very proud of it when I figured it out.
Well, this is another nice one.
Yeah,
Team values are baked into the process. You build a process that matches your values. Otherwise, you're going to fail. Mm-hmm. So we're at the learnings. Learning 1, don't be afraid to challenge best practices, methods, and processes. They might be good still. We'll get into why just being good or okay is not good. But, we're like, well, this has been 25 years ago. It might be worth checking, might be worth a refresh. We're talking about a 32-year-old game, and things did not maybe get figured out 25 years ago. I'm sure in game dev, in your fields, this has to be true. There is no way every best practice you have is correct.
There's some giggles. Giggles or nods. I can see the giggles or nods.
Don't be like fully contrarian, but be partially contrarian on the stuff you know can be changed. So I know Sahar was downgrading the design, but one of the things with the prototype I was trying to make was deliberately it was ugly. And I do this in presentations usually. This one's nicer than usual. But I usually do things that are deliberately ugly because it's not the final form. So as a result, you don't want to necessarily use it at the end. So it's a step on your journey. You're putting the stone to get to where you need to be, not trying to build the place where you're trying to get. Because we didn't know what the end journey was, right? So if you try to build like the house at the end of the road, but you don't know what the house is going to look like, build the road first. And then this is very true. Maybe more industry true than this true, but like one of the things with the hypothesis testing, the 2x2 testing is that it felt good, it felt okay, it felt like we were progressing. It is fine. The problem with just fine designs, right? Like let's say we had insisted, right? We're like, oh, the thing we're trying to do is correct. Let's insist on this. Is we would have damaged the player motivation. And that would, I think, have led to the team's destruction down the line. As somebody who stewards on the team, it's very important, and I'm always careful of making sure that whatever we're doing is progressing things and that people are still motivated. That's actually something we can talk about the leadership side too, but we really have this approach of being, we're usually pretty permissive, but one of the things we're extremely aggressive on is things that destroy our values, and one of those is like, oh yeah, it's just fine. Because if we're just fine, we're not going to grow, we're not going to take on new team members, we're not going to develop them.
Which leads to this, which effectively is have your designs and all of the stuff we're talking about built from the motivation and values. If you don't understand how the players are motivated, thank you, darling, how the players are motivated, you don't understand how they learn, you don't understand how they want to succeed. Heck, if you are trying to build a game and you don't know what your player experience is, again, this is my second time I'm going to swear, bitch, what the fuck are you doing? This is why I'm very passionate about user research and trying to build from a user-centered perspective. Because if you don't understand your users fundamentally and the way that they are learning and things like that, it's not controversial. I think this is something I can say out loud in a safe space. But yeah, it has to be aligned. And that's something I was really passionate about. And I think the fact that the team took that on and actually was really on board with it, and they recognized that from a kind of qualitative researcher, made my little happy heart. So it was all great. And then this is the thing that, I think within any talk we talk at Devcom and Gamescom this week, it's basically, especially in the hellscape we're in right now, invest in your team and your values. Like, please. Like, especially, look, we talked about that lovely guy Alex earlier, and Liam and Myra, who were like part of our team. They were really young, but they were really hungry, and they were keen to learn, and they wanted that opportunity to prove themselves. So invest in your juniors. Yes, we're a volunteer organization. Yes, there is barriers that in professional settings that might not be the case, but they're the people who have ideas. If you bring new perspectives in and they try to do something that is, we don't have all the answers. Heck, look at us. Eduardo is kind of good. I'm all right too. But, you have to invest in it. And we had to work collaboratively together because we knew that it could work. But fundamentally, if you don't invest in it, then why are we here? Like, why do we do this? If we could have just top-downed it, and then it would have been sad, and then the results would have gone down, and then the destruction of the team would have happened, and then that's not what we want. So, what now? What now? What are we doing? Well, firstly, Eduardo talked about codifying values. I was very insistent on this, like halfway through the project. I was like, the team need to know what we stand for. Because if the team know what we stand for and the responsibilities and how we are striving, that's really important, because this then is a long-standing thing. Everyone knows when they walk into this house, these are the values that we're enshrined by. Anyone who is out of that kind of value system, again, the third time I'm going to swear, get the fuck out. You go to another team. There are plenty of other teams that they can do. And we did this once. As you saw, it's one result. Final Fantasy, amazing tournament. So now we're in the stage where we're like, well, we've done it once, can we do it again? Because it could have just been a fluke. This whole talk could have been a whole fluke, and it's not. So we're going to try and introduce that process, try and figure out ways that it can be baked in so it's not just something that happens and it's a one-off thing. We're going to try and reproduce it, get the team kind of baked in and things like that. But to introduce this reproducibility in the process, we need to develop a recruitment process, Eduardo.
Yeah, so now for reproducibility, I've seen what's going on next tournament. It's going to take a little while. It's okay.
It's fine.
But the recruitment process, this is something I've had to be confronted on. So I'll be honest, I am new at that. So like I do not have much experience. If you want to hear about how to recruit, this is not the person to listen to. But unfortunately, I am one of the few people in the team with that expertise. So I have to do it. One of the things is identifying from people who are going to share values, who are going to participate. And one of the nice things with being a volunteer organization is also, when I say no to people, I don't have to make a hard no. One of the decisions we made as well as a recruitment process was for people who are interviews suck, I'm going to be honest with you, right? So like people don't always shine in them. They might not have given me the answers they needed to. Why should I punish them? So we give them so what we did last time was give them the opportunity for mentorship. When we're going to do these classes, courses, come on board, check them out. 2 people went through that I refused. They were fantastic. I will not interview next time. They will be offered directly. And it's trying to develop a recruitment process that tries to be a little more humane on all sides. We talked about including juniors. By that, again, I mean lapsed people, because we take those on. And in the studio, funny story, in the independent studio I'm at, I'm the youngest person. Everybody else is 50. There's a lot of ageism in the video game industry. They work with us because they're not finding jobs elsewhere. So don't worry, it's bad for everyone. Anyways, the important part as well, values and innovation at the forefront, always striving to go forward. And then, Sahar, we're publicizing this, right?
This is why we're here. This is why we're here, folks. We're telling you. We're literally documenting it. We're literally publicizing. It's going to be on the internet. It's going to literally, they're streaming it right now. For me, this is very important. When I approach Eduardo and say I want to try and do a placement and try and get some of this kind of expertise, I said, mate, if we're going to do this, we have to tell the people. I am tired. I was so tired of everyone being so secretive about all the way they did stuff. And I was like, Habibi, that's not the way we're doing this. We are going to publicize the whole process. And I think the vision for us, obviously being here, hello everyone, is that Eduardo and myself, particularly more Eduardo, we're planning to build a workbook. I think that's the plan.
Like a mini book, something like that.
Yeah, something like that where teams can actually use it. And it's not just something that they just summarize and off they go. They have to, it is something that it's good. And I think that for us it's...
I'll come to it. One of our values is to accept people who aren't finding others. We had success, so we're struggling to take on everybody. So the reason for this is because if our value is to support people who are on their own, and we can't take them on, we need to find a way to support them even if we're not actively involved. This is a part of this, that is a part of that. It all comes back to values. Can you do the last one? Because I think we're there.
There we go.
I don't really want to read much of this. I want you to read it. The important part for me is this, is that success only comes from investing in teams, communities, and values. Everything else is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Not actually joking.
Yeah. No. Oh my God, my picture's not there. What is that? Give me a hell yeah. With that, we come to the end of the talk. Thank you very much for being here. We're both actively seeking collaboration, so if you're interested in anything we're doing, these are some of the interests. I'm here, it's fine. You don't need to see my picture. And with that, we'll take any questions, folks. Yeah! We did it! Any questions?
This was your USB stick too.
This was my USB stick. Should I give, is there a mic or should I just give my mic? No, someone's.
We have 2 mics.
We have 2 mics. Oh, Eduardo, there you go.
Hello, yeah, so I was just interested, sorry I missed it, but the player who gave the statement that was basically completely against your values, with moving to a I'm going back
to it. There you go.
kind of bringing the players in after that, did that player stay in your team or did you part ways? Like, were you able to convince them to...
We parted ways.
Yeah, okay.
We parted ways. Everyone's leaving. It's fine. There's other talks. They didn't want to hear that. Fine. Yeah, we parted ways. They are still part of the wider alumni community, but they have been informed that they can be part of the community, but moving forward, they are not part of the kind of team.
Not the active stuff, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
they can see stuff, but they're not actively involved moving forward because I think, especially for bringing on new players, you don't want that level of bias within the team.
It also, the problem is when the person like was trying to lead on certain strategies, and unfortunately that stuff like bleeds down. And we talked about this person, but it did cause damage downwards too. So this is where the stuff can start being damaging.
Yeah, you just have one
we
bad
talked
apple.
about one person, but yes, it did cascade a little bit.
Yeah, it's quite annoying. Any other questions, folks?
Yes. Thank you. First of all, great talk. So it's very dialogue heavy, right? Your method.
Yes.
It's human communication. How are you planning to translate that into the workbook?
I think. I mean, you take this as well.
Yeah, sure. So one of the projects I've had for a while is there's a longer discussion about how in a lot of our community, when I grew up and started, a lot of the information was public and free. Then there was kind of a little bit of a paid segment, but like you'd pay like a magazine subscription. So like if you were interested, it'd be like, I mean, with inflation, it'd be like, I guess, €8 a month, and you'd have everything you needed. So I benefited from this era of free, high-quality, written information. The last couple of years, all of the stuff has started being secretive. Forums became Discord, which is great, but not search indexed. Then all the expertise, there weren't any more of these websites that took on articles. So people started selling those articles for whatever, 5, 10, 15, 20 bucks a pop, or guides. So all this information became secretive. And basically as time, the last couple of years, the number of high-level strategic material that's available free and publicly has diminished greatly. So to answer your question on that, a lot of it is going to be that a lot of the community believes our methods are actually mathematically based. Ironically, they see us as the data team.
We are not the data team.
The actual reason we use data is shared language. We have a lot of people from around the world, and if I have to teach them how 300 individual cards work, we're never getting anywhere.
But I think as well, the question, Eduardo, just to kind of clarify as well, is like, considering that we have a very like, it's very collaborative discussions, how are we going to try and codify that in a way that other players can translate it to themselves as well?
Probably diagrams. The answer is
Lots of diagrams.
The answer is always diagrams. Sorry.
Make it visual, folks.
No, but it's important, right? Like, it is very, as you say, discussion heavy. So to put that into practice, you need to like break it down. What we did here is much more high level theory approach. And with them, you're going to know the like exact details. So it's going to be a lot more like, okay, when you sit down, this is what you need to pay attention to. I recommend taking photos. Like we'll be a lot more detail orientated on exactly what you need to do, like step by step, so that there's no room for presumption, essentially.
Any other questions? We're very friendly. Oh, there you go. There's two.
You can even pass the mic just behind after
Just
you're
pass
done.
the mic behind you, mate. Just pass the mic. You're fine.
You just talked about the motivation for playing, and the first one was the one with the thrill, and to keep the thrill up.
Thrill.
Yeah,
Love thrill.
and winning is far below. So
Yeah, it's like that. They don't want to win.
don't the players maybe manipulate themselves so they just reach the thrill and don't win in the first hand?
The prizes are not high enough to justify winning.
No,
but no, it's
for the studies, for example. Is this
is there
a bias?
So is there an inherent bias in
Yes.
how they answer because of like the implication? This is on you, yeah.
This is on me. With any survey, I mean, okay, I'm going to put my academic brain on for the 5 people that are in the room that are academics. If I was trying to justify this as an academic piece, I would acknowledge that and say, look, whilst there is an interpretation of this data, and like, yes, the participants that are, they want to show me that they're, not motivated by winning. I would. It's tough because I think that there's probably some biases, but I can't untangle that without going deeper into motivations. And I think one thing, if I decide to continue doing the more motivations work, is I'm going to say the word self-determination theory. There's one person in the room who should prick up. Nope, that's fine. But there are certain psychological processes I can go down to and kind of be like, okay, is it about your competence? Is it about your autonomy? Is it about your relatedness and stuff like that? And interview them about kind of their motivations in a bit more detail and try and untangle some of this data in a bit more way. But this was just a snapshot to kind of begin understanding the player base more. I was talking to them as well, but some of that wasn't, that was just kind of anecdotal stuff that was going through. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
There's a gentleman behind you.
Wait, you have ice cream. We all should get ice cream after
Oh, we should all get ice cream.
Yeah, and it's for free, so it's the best
I know.
part.
That's why I want free ice cream.
Thanks for your talk. It was really great.
All right.
I love to look in intersecting fields and different fields of stuff. So my question is, did you also watch for different fields and approaches like project management, agile working, or design thinking ideas? Because your graph looked like a lot of stuff I knew from different diagrams in different fields. Did you also research there, or did you develop your own system by your own?
So we, with age comes slightly different, more complete backgrounds. We talked about Sahar being a stand-up comic. She also did sales and marketing. And on my side, my background's actually community, if you believe it or not, like customer support, community. I moved into design because community was just not something in most game teams that could affect product, and you needed to affect product to change how the community behaved. But no, we have, good spot, we have interdisciplinary expertise, and also we didn't talk about some of the other leads, but they have additional expertise as well.
Yeah, there's multiple things coalescing. I think whilst it wasn't obvious, I think just by the very nature of us coming together and sort of working and kind of, you can't, as a researcher, I must have a constructivist point of view. Like, I construct the interpretations that I see. That includes my relationships with the team, with Eduardo, with, the wider fields. But yeah, I probably, when I was building it, I took initially a lot of the ideas. I was looking at esports and to get some inspiration. But I was also looking at project management and kind of other HR things. Just kind of how do teams work together, like on a fundamental level. And then also bringing in like user research and things like that. So yeah, there's definitely, I think it wasn't, it's not like, yes, if I had to cite it, then yes, I would cite it. But, it's a games industry, you don't need citations. I hope that answers your question. Any other questions?
We have time for one. So
we have time for
this
one.
gentleman's the last one.
My friend, I see you. I see you, Habibi, don't worry.
There we go, teamwork. Thank you for learning.
Thank you for the talk.
Teamwork.
First, thank you for the talk. And my question would be, this year there were a lot of Universe Beyond releases from Wizards of the
Excellent.
Yeah.
Oh,
Excellent. Excellent.
Habibi, my heart.
We only have 2 minutes, so I'll answer this
Okay,
one. Go
all
ahead.
right. I'm just gonna coil in the corner.
I mean, like, I see the third point is like the love for the game, and
Yes.
in my bubble, there's a lot of conversation about like why Final Fantasy and SpongeBob, whatever, and how does it affect the players you talk to and everything? Does it change the dynamic? What shifts? Because all the millennials, for example, they.
Sure. So okay. So I'll answer your question straightforwardly and then more philosophically. Straightforwardly, they don't actually know what Final Fantasy is. They don't care. I'm not joking with you.
I wish they did.
No, like seriously, they were asking which Final Fantasy game should I play. Like, it made them curious, but they didn't like. It's because like the people that are involved are outside. Like they only play cards for a lot of them. So like, I'm answering you in terms of the team. That group of 20, 50 people. They're more interested in like how much are the cards worth, what did you open in a pack, that kind of stuff. In a more philosophical, wider range, the reason you see a lot of what you see online is because of how mathematics of conversation work for social media, which are that generally, historically in forums, 10% of people talk. That matches with Twitch interactivity as well. Only 10% of people use chat. And when we're talking online social media, you better believe it's even less. And the thing is, out of that percentage, certain topics rise to the top. And in terms of mathematics, anger tends to be the emotion that rises most to the top. So our perception tends to be that anger is a predominant emotion more than it is in the majority of the player population. Now, of course, some people are upset about it because they don't like it, and it's a lot of releases, and they feel like the game's identity is fracturing. It's a more complicated topic, but one of the things is when you feel you have a home and that home is changing, people can react in various ways, which include anger. I will leave you on that answer. There are wider implications to what I just said. But yes, that is why you see those reactions. But in our team, they're just going like, okay, which card works?
Yeah, and also I think that fundamentally, whilst there is challenges with the way that Magic as an ecosystem is developing, fundamentally I think still Magic brings people together, and if different IPs bring that togetherness together, so many devs, folks. I think that's fundamentally important. Yes, would I like it if Bird Maiden and Worldly Council were still, this is the aesthetic? Yeah. But I also acknowledge that...
This was drawn in 1993. I met the artist. She's lovely.
She is lovely. But fundamentally, any game that is going through growth and change will have its, people who are saying bad things about it, but also people who are still love the game. Like, I've been playing Magic for 10 plus years. You've been playing for like 20 plus. I don't think that's going away.
I had Magic compared to Yu-Gi-Oh! In 2003. Just to give you a random piece of because there was a mechanic that resembled Yu-Gi-Oh! Where the cards were face down. Of course, none of that happened. But you are correct on the university to recircle. It is a concern with a lot of people. But yeah, I think that's our time.
I think that's our time. Folks, have a lovely rest of your Devcom. If you want to chat to us afterwards, we're going to go get ice cream. Or find us at the mixer.
We'll be outside for a bit.
Yeah, we'll be vibing, and then you'll hear me. If you don't, you'll hear me before you see me. And with that, thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoy the rest of Devcom.